7-11-22 to Kenny.
8300. 8362, 28 to a vehicle, 900 North my parking lot of Kmart,
Okay, we're on it. 3, 2, 1.
Now as I takes
Yeah. All right, man. It has been a minute. Not really, but yeah, it's been a minute and a lot of shit's been going on and a lot of shit that I want to talk about. And boy, they done it to your boy R. Kelly. Found guilty on all charges. And what I want to do is kind of get into the news, the press release of it, just to kind of show, man, like how they're carrying this case, this situation, and there's so much that I have to say about it on so many fronts because there's a lot of hypocrisies being thrown out. You see a lot of double standards, even with this case alone. Once again, I really feel that this is another instance. It's the same thing that they did with Bill Cosby. As far as, they're locking niggas up for allegations. Like what's substantial, and then people will say, like, when you say, okay, well, what proof to where you could prove it to without a shadow of a doubt, and they'd be like, oh well, they have video, and I know for one, us the public, we have not seen the videos. We haven't been made privy to the videos, so it's like, how do you pass a judgment based on some shit that you heard somebody else seen? It's just it seems like it's society now more so is kind of going by mob rule. I don't see any in either of these cases, how I brought up the Cosby case, like how it's proved without a shadow of a doubt. And he's facing 10 years to life for this. I never thought that there was any way that he would get a fair or unbiased trial. Just impossible at his stature. But it seems like with cases like these that we see, they keep coming up where it involves women. It seems like everything is okay until a woman or women allege some shit. And then you're guilty, and it's almost a burden on you that you have to prove without a shadow of a fucking doubt that you're innocent. These females don't have to prove shit. They just got to get on a stand and be willing to fucking cry. And a lot of guys are going down, like, you know what I'm saying? And don't get me wrong, like, the allegations are gross. They're heinous. Depending on how you interpret them. But once again, it's allegation. And I mean, they had females showing up in court and shit, pregnant. They had already moved on with their lives, talking shit. It's just like, I don't know, we're fucking crucifying people off of allegations, and there's just no damn proof. We live in an era now, especially where women document their entire fucking lives down to their assholes on social media. But none of these bitches ever document any alleged abuse. Ever. Like, I just find that interesting. So it comes to a point to where it's, who do you believe? You believe the females pressing allegations, or Do you believe the black celeb? And it's not really to come to the defense of R. Kelly at all. I mean, I think he's definitely done something to put himself in these positions. But I mean, when we're real about things and we're real about ourselves and how we look at things, and I don't know, it just kind of seems like he's being railroaded, and it sucks for maybe some of his friends or, you know, collaborators and stuff that may want to speak out, but they can't because every time somebody says something that's even remotely defensive or seems or can be taken as defensive for R. Kelly, it's an issue. And it's backlash. It won't be no backlash on me because you motherfuckers can kiss my ass and I'm going to say what I want to say. It's that fucking simple. But I do want to get into this news clip real quick, if I could, when they handed the verdict down. I don't know. I'll try to chime in, chime out. I don't know. This covers it a little bit more.
Also charged with sex trafficking. Jurors have just reached a verdict in the federal trial of R&B singer R. Kelly. He has been found guilty of racketeering. He is also charged with sex trafficking. These are charges that could send him to prison for decades, and CNN's Jean Casares has been following this case for us. We also have CNN legal analyst Areva Martin. She is here with us also. Okay, Jean, this just happened. I know you are scrambling to figure out exactly what all of this means, as am I. So, guilty on racketeering.
And the Eastern District of New York, the courts just tweeted that out. So they are saying guilty of racketeering. There was one count of racketeering. There were 14 different acts involved, including sexual exploitation of a minor, bribery, kidnapping, and sex trafficking charges. So this is all we have at this point. Now, he's also charged with the Mann Act, which is a federal law involving sex trafficking. Now, nothing on that yet, so they could be in the midst of the reading of this verdict because racketeering was count one. The Mann Acts were the counts after that, 2 through 9. And so we don't know how far they've gotten, but this is an extremely complicated trial. It is very, very sophisticated. It went for 23 days. There were 50 witnesses. There were many young women that testified that R. Kelly had kidnapped them, held them in rooms. They could only go to the bathroom or eat if they got permission from his people. They had to wear baggy clothes, they testified, unless they were in his presence. They could only look at him. They could not look at other men. It was tearful testimony, emotional testimony, and ultimately, the prosecution said it is time for him to be convicted.
And that's one of the points that I wanted to make, just how she skimmed over it. Pretty much their testimony of like details of their interactions or relationship, whatever it is you might call it. And that's what I'm talking about, where the lines are always blurred. Because some of the shit that they're saying or they're claiming duress from is kink shit. Like shit that some people would consider kinky. I mean, I don't know, man. It's that's the thing when you're dealing with allegations, and somehow we got from this point to where, like, people hear allegations and they automatically assume them as fact. I don't know. Let's get more into it.
It's hard to imagine that he wouldn't be convicted of sex trafficking with all the vile details that we heard during the trial, those that Jean just laid out in terms of, as we all know, the singer Aaliyah trying to marry her illegally, underage, all of the stuff that we heard. So where are you with all the details that we've just heard?
Not surprised, Allison, at all at the guilty verdict. And not only was there riveting testimony, as Gene just told us about, but there was also video recordings, apparently some pretty graphic video and audio recording that the jurors were allowed to both hear and see of him berating women, of him engaging in certain kinds of violent sexual acts with women. So the jurors had an opportunity to not just hear from these women, but to see these videotapes.
And that's the thing. You can get on Pornhub and type in anything you like. I mean, I don't know. I think without us, maybe the jury maybe had access to it, but also I think the jury, and I think people in general, they're just going to operate off of sympathy. Like people really do not go off of logic, or they don't think. Really, I don't think so anymore. I can't imagine that. It's the minute a woman cries foul, that's it. And you're almost wrong to ask questions, or you're considered shaming or victim blaming. But no, you got to ask questions. Like, it's no secret that R. Kelly's a nasty ass nigga. And if he's dealing with bitches, they got to get on his program. What is different from this than the shit that just the small details that they giving us? What is different from this than your homeboy that you know that got hoes, and I don't know. You know, they bitch gotta listen, and man, you just never know. Before we feel so sorry, like, oh my God, like, and then all that shit is alleged. Like, how's there no proof, no definitive proof outside of like crying ass testimony? Like, I find that shit crazy. And so you take these bitches' sob stories and then you mix it with a couple sex tapes that you probably shouldn't see, because in a sense, it ain't none of your fucking business really. And then you come to the conclusion that this nigga deserves life in jail. But we gonna go on. We gonna get into this shit. Y'all think I came to play with y'all today? God damn it, I'm not. But hold on.
To hear the audio. And this has been 25 years in the making, according to the prosecution, that he used his platform, he used his fame, his music fame to lure young girls into his circle, and then had a team of people around him, employees, agents, managers, others in his circle to create this oppressive environment for these young women. So not surprising that.
To that. That's the fucking point. If you're rich and famous, who the fuck is not gonna use their celeb to pull bitches? It's wrong for a celeb to use their fucking fame to grant them favor to get some ass. But it's not wrong for bitches to say fuck with R. Kelly because he's famous. Like, make that shit make sense. Then they're making it seem like it's a big racketeering, and if his friends knew and it was all this and he created, then why he about the only motherfucker that's going to jail? Like, what? Man.
That guilty verdict on these very serious federal charges. And as you said, Allison, he is facing anywhere from 10 years to life. And this is only the beginning, because there are other jurisdictions that also have filed charges against R. Kelly.
Gene, we did hear a lot of details about the case, but not all of them. Was this case more shrouded in secrecy in terms of transcripts and things because some of the women were minors at the time?
Sexual assault victims. And that can create a situation where things are sealed. I want to talk about what Areva just mentioned, extremely important, because the indictment and the testimony went onward from the sexual exploitation, sex trafficking, to the production of videos where these young women, many of them minors, were forced to do things before the camera. Now, right before the trial ended, We know that the jury was able to see some video. The media was not allowed to look at it at all. We don't know what it was, but it corroborated what these young women were saying. Well, today, the media was actually able to hear some of the audio. I've seen some of it in writing. It is not appropriate for air. What these women were told to do, told to say back to R. Kelly, so they place R. Kelly in the room. And remember, this was...
What do you call? I don't know if they call it what, circumstantial, subjective. As if R. Kelly's the only motherfucker that records himself fucking. And see, that's the thing that's annoying me about this on CNN. And I know CNN, they're glad to have something to fucking talk about. They boy Biden ain't looking too fucking good. But that's the thing. Subjective. I'd be willing to bet, because I haven't seen the tape. These bitches ain't even seen the tape. I'd be willing to bet. Ain't nothing no worse on them tapes than what you could find on Pornhub or whatever your favorite site is, OnlyFans. It's no different. The only thing that changes is the narrative, because for some reason along the line for all these years, these females are now for some reason disgruntled. They're sex tapes. So being objective, I don't know. I would expect to see and hear some pretty nasty and vulgar shit on there. And I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I don't see why we rush to assume guilt. And we don't object to shit, knowing how suspect all this shit looks. The fact that they keep mentioning them as minors. See, there's a problem with that in this country. Because even though you're a minor, you can consent to sex in most states in the US at 16. So that's where it's blurred, because it's like, do I recommend fucking 16, 17-year-olds as a adult male or adult female? No. But it is the age of consent. Even though they're still minors. So, I mean, it may speak to an ethics or moral issue, but legally, just saying, like, and then we gotta stop acting like, we gotta stop acting like bitches don't be hoes at 16. Like, yo, come on. I can tell y'all now, and a lot of motherfuckers out here, y'all can really remember, like, you step down off your high horse for a second, you could really remember yourself. A lot of you hoes, 13, 14, carrying on. All of a sudden, none of you bitches remember being picked up by some grown-ass man speeding off with y'all out of the school parking lot. You know, we don't talk about that. We're acting like bitches can't be hoes at 14, 15. Like yes, hoes come in all motherfucking ages. And I'm tired of, as a society, when these type of cases or these kind of things come up, like we're just not objective to it. Like people are just automatically sympathetic because bitches got a sob story. Bitches and hoes come in all fucking age range. Believe that. You get to be a big grown bitch. You probably had to be a little bitch. You know what? Let me just get back. Getting off track. Told you I ain't come to play.
A criminal enterprise. It involved R. Kelly. It involved handlers, managers, agents, people to the side of R. Kelly, but he was the head of it. And so he is the one that was charged.
And so,
in what case ever, to where you have a ring and they say, like, okay, so he was the one in charge, so he was the one that was charged. To me, that speaks to some sort of targeted effort. So you letting all these known involved handlers and managers and all that shit go to lock up one dude? Then how does that help the fucking problem? Because then that means you lock R. Kelly up, you still got fucking handlers and managers and everything. They can go do this shit with somebody else if there's really a racketeering bracket going on. Like, I mean, you gotta make the shit make fucking sense.
so Riva, that brings in the racketeering convictions. So that's usually reserved for like organized crime. So how does this fit?
Yeah, you're right, Allison. Usually when we think of racketeering, we're thinking of mob bosses. We're thinking of the mafia. We're not thinking of sexual predators like R. Kelly. But the federal prosecutors in this case wanted to and did an effective job of making the case that this just wasn't about one incident. It wasn't about multiple incidents. It was about a criminal enterprise that was carried out over years, involving different states, involving different actors, bad actors that were involved in this enterprise. And hopefully this is the beginning of seeing these kinds of prosecutions that carry very serious penalties against sexual predators like R. Kelly. This is a huge decision given the Me Too movement, and particularly to see someone, we've seen Bill Cosby, we've seen Harvey Weinstein, and now R.
Me Too movement shit. Well, let me tell you, with this fucking new wave of feminism, Me Too movement, I mean, it's getting to the point to where in order for men to protect themselves, they're going to have to start putting bitches on paperwork. It's almost getting to the point that I feel to where it's almost dangerous to have bitches around. Just especially the more that you have to lose, you really got to watch how you move and how you are with female. Because you can go from a playboy, player, R&B singer extraordinaire, to all of a sudden they swearing you locking bitches up in their house and not letting them go home to their parents, even though their parents know exactly what their of age to consent asses is at. And they'll tell you that you having hoes and shit is a fucking enterprise. And I guess having hoes in different area codes is a racket as well. A lot of you niggas better watch yourselves, because a lot of y'all niggas doing the same motherfucking shit. I just didn't know that was fucking racketeering and all that shit. That's what they calling it now.
Kelly being held accountable for, in this case, decades of sexual assault and violence against young girls and women.
Gene, we are just getting in more information now that he has been convicted of 9 counts, I believe, including the sex trafficking charges and that racketeering. So they're just announcing it, slowly. First was the racketeering, and now the sex trafficking, because it would have been unimaginable for him not to be given what you've just said was the evidence presented in the court. And
sex trafficking was a part of the racketeering also, but the Mann Act specifically focuses in on sex trafficking, as just you're saying right here. This jury was 7 men and 5 women. It was a very diverse jury. It was a jury that listened to so much testimony, woman after woman. Here's one example. There was a former radio DJ intern who says that R. Kelly invited her to interview him. I mean, what a thing, right? When you're just an intern and he asks you, you can interview me. She went to his studio in Chicago. She said she was placed in a room. She realized she couldn't get out. And this was for days. She was finally given food. She remembers passing out and awaking and seeing R. Kelly readjusting his clothes. And so she believes that she was drugged, sexually assaulted, and that is one example.
So even listen to that. That is a terrible fucking story. Or an allegation. But once again, it's a fucking allegation. And this is the thing with people who are victims of sexual assault, is it does a huge disservice when they don't report or get their fucking rape kits and all that shit done. And then I don't know if this lady maybe misrep that young lady's testimony, but in the way that she says that it happened, like I would like to believe that a bitch would know if her pussy has been tampered with. So saying like, oh, she thinks that she may have been sexually assaulted and all, like, come on.
How terrifying. I mean, that
Yes.
does obviously conjure Bill Cosby accusations as well, as Areva just brought up. Areva, tell us again, now that we know that he's being convicted of these sex trafficking and racketeering, he's 54 years old, I believe. How much time is he looking at in prison?
Yeah, he's looking at a minimum of 10 years and a maximum of life in prison. And again, as I said, Allison, this is just in this one case. There are other jurisdictions that are also going to try him. I think it's also interesting to note, Allison, the defense in this case was primarily that these women were all liars, that they were gold diggers, that they purposely associated themselves with R. Kelly because they were trying to advance their music careers, and that they were voluntary participants in sexual acts. And I think at one point the lawyer even said, it's not a crime to like kinky sex. He kept making references to the fact that these were consenting adults. And the jurors obviously unequivocally rejected those claims by his defense attorney and found that these were not consenting adults, that these were children, that these were violent acts, these were criminal acts, and they're holding R. Kelly accountable.
Reba, one more question on that. Because of the echoes of Bill Cosby, same thing, the old he said, she said, no. She said, she said, she said, she said, she said, as we've learned. And the arguments that that this was all consensual. It's absurd. But isn't it interesting that this is the verdict now, because 13 years ago, R. Kelly was acquitted of child pornography charges at a state trial. So, obviously there's been a sea change.
A major sea change, Allison, in the way that we listen to, the way that we believe, and the way that we receive claims that are made by women that have been sexually assaulted. And as you know, for many years, women that would come forward and tell of sexual violence were not believed. They were actually maligned by their jobs, by their employers, and even in the media. But since that time, there's more understanding, there's more empathy, and there's a greater understanding that there are lots of reasons why women don't always come forward right after they were sexually assaulted. We understand that better now. And the public, I think, by sending a strong message in this case, fed up. Enough is enough. And men who engage in this kind of conduct are going to be held accountable, and that accountability is going to look like long prison sentences. So not surprised by this verdict, and I don't think anyone that's been following this trial is surprised, because the nature of the evidence presented by the prosecutor is so compelling.
Yes, sir. And yeah. And then you see, as it always does, it turns into a fucking women's issue, which is really what this is all about. Panel of women. Now this is about Me Too and all this shit. And the thing that I ultimately see with this, because once again, I would say there's no way that I think anybody would defend R. Kelly is perfect and all that shit. But tuck your fucking feelings aside for a second and get this shit out. And what I see is more so it it's more it takes away from one, women having to have fucking accountability for the shit that they do. It takes away, they totally scoff at the fact that it is just unthinkable that women would seek to take advantage of men like Bill Cosby or R. Kelly for their own gains, and then that somehow that these men are wrong for using or allowing that celebrity to gain them, access to women. But it's not wrong, or it's not fathomable to believe that these women would be fucking these guys in the first place for that reason, to get on, to get a spot, to get a feature, or whatever the hell. So it's crazy. It's just like, it's on one end, everything is just totally leaning to push and demean and demonize and vilify men. And that's the overall fucking issue here. It's like it's wrong to look at the facts that this motherfucker is R. Kelly at the end of the day. Yes, he has some sort of weird thing for young girls, but at the end of the day, like the lawyer said, there's nothing wrong with nasty sex with consenting people. It's also why the terminology of calling it rape and all that shit was never mentioned, because it's not fucking rape. Him fucking a 16, 17-year-old is not against the law in this country. And I think people get that kind of misconstrued because, niggas here under 18 and then motherfuckers get all appalled. Like, come on. Come on. Roll the fuck up. All fucking hoes and shit in your family. And you already know how these motherfucking females out here get down. So to act surprised and shit, or shame or vilify any motherfucker over this shit would be fucking, I don't know. Motherfuckers just be so beside yourselves. But like I was saying, this is just ultimately another thing where you can see that it's an attack on men, and especially an attack on black men. I mean, shit, we can feel bad for your fucking stories. You can cry. But what I really don't understand is how is niggas facing 10 years to life and you can't prove that shit without a shadow of a fucking doubt. One bitch like, oh my God, he raped me and shit. And another motherfucker like, oh shit, she was with it. It was consensual. I don't know what the hell she's talking about. Then you have two conflicting stories. So then how do you deem to change one motherfucker's life off of allegations? The burden of proof should be to prove that the shit actually fucking happened. Bitches can draw up some tears and all that shit real quick. It's just this thing to where we just act like believe women no matter what. And it's just a fucking dangerous road that we're going down doing this shit, because we don't object to anything. We don't ask questions. Yeah, sometimes you gotta fucking victim blame, because you gotta make the shit make sense before you vilify and label and do all that shit. Watch motherfuckers like Hugh Hefner for 200 motherfucking years, or however long he lived, basically do everything that they charged R. Kelly with. That motherfucker didn't lose a day off the goddamn street. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, who the fuck did R. Kelly piss off? Yeah, Hugh Hefner had 9-year-old Brooke Shields on the damn cover of Playboy. Didn't lose a motherfucking day off the street. How many niggas should have been locked up for that issue? That's the thing. They're doing it. And then when we're not objective and, you know, really want truth, then that's where you have this kind of like mob mentality over everything. And we're locking people up based off of emotion and public opinion. And that's not right. That's not really justice. Justice should be about making sure you get an absolute truth. And I just find it crazy that most of their evidence from what they present to us, unless they got something that they want to give to the public to change public opinion or overall public opinion, that most of the evidence that they have is very subjective. Like, you can look at it and shit, if you got a bitch crying and shit, I don't know, playing it back, like, I don't know. I don't know. I remember when they dropped his other tapes and shit, and they tried to make it seem they was calling it fucking rape and everything, and people saw the tapes, they were like, that shit didn't look like some unwanted shit. None of it. I don't know if he stopped paying these hoes, if he ain't get these motherfuckers the record deals that he's promising, and I don't know. I mean, it definitely looks like railroading since he's the only one from this big operation that's getting locked up. Yeah. All right, y'all I keep letting them do niggas like that and keep turning on black people so quick. Scared to ask questions and shit because you don't want to look like, oh, you what the motherfuckers be saying when I be telling them shit. They be, oh man, you're defending a fucking pedophile and shit. Like, nigga, man, you still go over your fucking uncle's house every fucking week. White people stay in the motherfucking Catholic Church. Fucking priest been fucking every one of your goddamn sons. You don't say shit. You got a problem with R. Kelly. Like, people really need to be more objective and really, it's okay. Because nothing about this trial makes sense. The charges still don't fucking make sense. And then he still has other charges stemming from child porn in other states or jurisdictions, and that's something different. So I'm talking about this case here. Stop being so quick to think that you can just or you can just run the field with a motherfucker because you don't agree with them in certain areas. Like this shit here, this case is bullshit. It seems like bullshit. It don't make sense. And when you see it being talked about by panel of women and they mentioning Me Too and all this shit, and it's about women's strides and shit, locking up men, I wonder why it never goes the other way. Why are women allowed to do this type of shit? Why are they allowed to abuse men and take advantage of men and do shit, and it's nothing that we can do about it? I don't know. But anyway, let me know what the fuck y'all think in the comments. Me to like and subscribe is completely free. And hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when I'm on here talking my shit, giving y'all that grease. And until next time, I'm out.
It's your boy Slim Sab, I stay gritting and grinding. Paint dripping off the slab, main the left wrist shining. Puffing on the best herb, purchase all the best clothes. Brody, fuck what you heard, over here we getting dope. Hella marijuana smoke, VIP with model hoe. Get them high, got them drunk, now they all wanna go. Got it crunk, get it turned, keep the groupies getting low. Getting blade till I'm burnt, I sitting low, bro.
I'm $1 million dream. Bean for the green with the cookies and the cream. Tell you how to get it with the package and the beam. Legal over legal and it hard as it seems. You know what I mean? Never trigger but a quicker just to let it go. Like a buddy in the wind, I'ma let it blow. Bottle bottles at the bar, I'ma let it flow. Little change for my chain, I'ma let it glow. Never cuss it on the chick, but I let it hoe. Let the white girls in, fuck it, let it snow. Tip a couple bottles, got a couple models. Tell the beater when I leave just to let them know. You got some rap bottom. Yo, where them stats I got 'em. Money ain't a thing like Jermaine before the tax.
When I step up in the club, bet I'm buying all the bottles. When I leave out for the night, bet I'm leaving with the models. Going heavy on the gas, 140 on the throttle. It ain't nothing, baby, we gon' do the same old thing tomorrow. I'm $1 million dream, it's a penny for your sight. I'm $1 million dream, here's a penny for your sight. I'm $1 million dream, here's a penny for your sight. I'm $1 million dream, here's a penny for your sight.
What's up, cause I gotta get the paper tag. My money get booked, that's what I call a paperback. Me living lavish, I'm headed up with a paper tag. I put in work cause somebody gotta pay for that. Almighty made for that, so I came up with a scheme. Then I got my game up with my team. Now I'm trying to get my name up on the cream. It's a shame the only dream. Better get up out your bed. I ain't preaching to you, homie, but faith without work is dead. I'ma go get it instead. I take my words, turn them to action. While you settling, taking a loss, I enjoy success, satisfaction.
Racks on racks on racks, stacking stacks on stacks on stacks. Maseratis back to back, from VIP down to the track. They know what we do it big, gotta get it how I live. Raising funds, but I don't give. Nobody fresher than the kid. Don't believe it, ask your chick. She just want me cause I'm rich, but I don't trick and I don't treat. Be her $1 million dreams, another $1 million scheme. Nobody fucking with that squad. We that $1 million dream, stacking millions is my job. When I step up in the club, bet I'm buying all the bottles. When I leave out for the night, bet I'm leaving with the models. Going heavy on the gas, 140 on the throttle. It ain't nothing, baby, we gon' do the same old thing tomorrow. I'm $1 million dream, it's a penny for your sight. I'm $1 million dream, here's a penny for your sight. I'm $1 million dream, here's a penny for your sight. I'm $1 million dream, here's a penny for your sight. If you don't work and you don't eat, you don't grind and you don't shine. So every time I hit the block, nigga, all them knocks on me. Petty Swiss or Gorgonzola, boy, I gotta get my cheese. We them alphabet boys, keep the K's with the G.
Check it, when you wanna go up in there. When you tryna be, I'm already in there. Game spitting till I'm all within here. And you still be watered down like swimwear. Flow smooth like a G6 in air. But it's rougher than I feel for the cactus. Or the kicker with my skill take practice. You can spend a lifetime, still can't match this.
When I step up in the club, bet I'm buying all the bottles. When I leave out for the night, bet I'm leaving with the models. Going heavy on the gas, 140 on the throttle. It ain't nothing, baby, we gon' do the same old thing tomorrow. I'm $1 million dream, here's a penny for your sight. I'm $1 million dream, here's a penny for your sight. I'm $1 million dream, here's a penny for your sight.